welcome Joe Gregory, co-founder of Rethink Press. He's one of those people that make things happen behind the scenes, and you might not know how influential and how well connected he is. So, Joe, good to have you with us.
Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me.
So I knew from the point that I made the decision that I was going to write a book, I knew that I wanted Rethink Press to publish it. I didn't know you at that time. So then I went away and found who are the people behind it, connected with you. And this has gone back probably 3 years now from today, 3 years ago. And it took me 2.5 years to get to the point that I'd finished my book. And then I thought, right, in my head, when I first started it, I thought writing the book was the thing to do. Little did I know that actually taking it from a finished manuscript to then publishing it is only the start of the process. It's what you do with the book afterwards. And that's the value that I got from working with you guys. It was huge. So we were introduced by a mutual friend. I reached out to Elliot Kay. And I said, Elliot, could you do me a favor? I'd really like you to introduce me to Joe Gregory. I've got my book almost ready to publish. I'd really like him to do it. And of course, he said, yes, no problem. And then what happened? What was your version of events after that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'll start with Elliot. So I absolutely love Elliot. And one of the things, like you say, I am behind the scenes. And a bit like you, I try and find out who's behind the people that I admire are doing good things. So in our case, like Daniel Priestley is one of the people a lot of people admire, and we've been behind the scenes publishing, many of his books for a long time, for over a decade. And so Elliot was one of those other people behind the scenes. And what I found is, befriending people. You talk about this, and I know there's a book coming, Friendship Fuels Business. I've spent my career, 30 years making friends with people. Not necessarily being in front of people or being the kind of authority in front of them, but making friends behind the scenes with the people that are doing the things. And that's whether it's the person on the reception or somebody's PA. I'm like, they're all potential friends. They're all capable, interesting people that are doing things I can't do. And we were talking about this earlier before the podcast. Finding those strengths in others is one of the things I love doing. So it's interesting. I've got this light behind me in my messy office. I've seen my job as shining the spotlight on greatness, on cool people. And so Elliot's a great person. And so going back to your question, when Elliot made the introduction, I'm like, this is a friend of Elliot's. I'm going to take really, really good care of him. So it starts from that. I think friendship is the thing. I don't see it as oh, great, another lead, another potential client. It's like Elliot has introduced me to somebody. He's trusted me with a friend of his, a colleague of his. I'm going to be of service. So that's where I started with that. So as soon as you reached out, I'm like, I liked your voice notes. I think we communicated on WhatsApp initially, and I sent a few back. I'm like, I've got a new friend. I found a new friend. So that's where it started. And then from there, it's like, how can we make this brilliant for you? And then you hit me with this needs to be done really quickly. And I'm like, I'm going to have to let him down.
Let me fill in at this point. So I'd spent 2.5 years to get to the point that I'd almost finished my manuscript. And then that was the point where I was handing it over to Gillian Schofield to take my amateur efforts and turn it into the polished, finished product. And we had a call, and you said, yes, we can definitely help you with this, Jamie, depending upon your manuscript. And I said, okay, the challenge that I've got is I need this to be ready for our conference in September. And you said, we normally don't do it on such a tight deadline. And it was... But Jamie, I'll have a word with the team, and if your manuscript's any good, we'll do it. So I went on holiday. I handed over my work to Gillian, said, can you do this? I'll be back in a week, and I've got a meeting with Joe. And she said, yeah, no problem. And then I got back and she'd done it, and she said, I'm never doing that again. That was too much in a short period of time. And then I gave it to you, and you gave it to the team, and they were like, this is great. We're ready to go with this. Yeah. So everything just fell into place, and you guys were amazing.
I will say at that point, when you told me it was a business parable, I'm like, that was the first thing, because I've seen a lot of people attempt them and fail. Like, they're just not good. They're not interesting stories. So the value's there. And I'm like, it's a very hard thing to pull off. And I think you and Gillian worked as an amazing team. Gillian did a great job with what you'd done to make that into a brilliant book. And again, going back to the friendship, it's probably not good boss energy, but I'm friends with my whole team. So I'm like, I'm going to have to beg some favors here. I'm going to have to lean into the fact they like me. I've been kind. I've been nice. I've stepped up when they've needed me to pull this favor to make sure it works. And Anchor in particular, you know, she's so on it. She's so professional and so good at the process. And I've got to win Anchor over, and she's not going to be happy with this. And so it was an absolute blessing when the book got the thumbs up from the team. I'm like, great, that's like one milestone ahead that we can make this happen. So yeah, just testament to you and Gillian. You wrote a great book, and you actually created a parable book that's got really meaningful lessons, but it's also really enjoyable to read. It's really engaging, and that's not easy. So I usually, you know, first time out authors, everybody loves Who Moved My Cheese, and I'm trying to think like the 1 Minute Manager, all those kind of books, or the 1 Minute Millionaire. And that's a hard thing to do. And I just got to mention, actually, Go for No. I'd never heard of that book. And at your conference, you know, I got to meet the authors of that, and their name eludes me at the moment, but what a great book.
Andrea and
And I know
Richie.
you'd mentioned that your book wants to be in that vein. You did a great job, and you definitely achieved that.
Yeah, definitely. So the two books that inspired me were The Go-Giver and Go for No. And Bob has read it. Bob Berg, who co-authored The Go-Giver, loved it and comments regularly and wrote a post about it, promoting it to his network of people. And Andrea and Richard did the same. They're both amazing. So Be More Buffalo was a lot of work. It was a lot of work over a period of time that then got condensed at the end. And literally, you guys pulled out the bag and I went, right, I'm just going to do what you say. And I tried to be a great client. So when you gave me something, I acted on it straight away, and I just accepted all your recommendations and advice. The lorry pulled up on the Friday before our conference on the Monday. So if it hadn't arrived then, it was too late, because I left on the Sunday, and this huge lorry reversed down with fortunately it wasn't full of my books, because that's your story, Joe.
Yeah.
But it was just an amazing experience. So everything from start to finish working with you guys. And I think when I first started writing a book, I thought I would self-publish.
Yeah.
And I've seen good and bad. I wouldn't self-publish, having been through your process. It was money and time well invested to get something better. And I liken it, when I speak to people, I said, did you build your own website? Well, I did the first one, but it wasn't very good. And then I paid somebody to build it right. Well, you don't get right second time opportunities with a book. You can't publish something and it not be very good and then take the same thing and do better. You only get one chance to do it right, I think.
Yeah.
So, and that's what I wanted to do with you guys. So, no, go on.
Oh, I'd just love to talk to what you're saying. I think the entrepreneurial spirit is we'll figure it out. I can make that happen. We're resourceful generally as entrepreneurs and founders. And so we do have to make do. Sometimes you have to do the things that you're not necessarily best qualified for just to get the thing off the ground. But I think at a point when you're getting serious, investing in professionals that have, you know, done this thousands of times for other people, you can get a real uplift of speed. And it feels like handing over the mic, I could do it myself. But yeah, making that choice is a difficult one when you're kind of like, I'll figure this out. If you're a figure out, an entrepreneurial kind of person, you want to figure it out. And yeah, I've learned that myself. I mean, I still do things I shouldn't do. And we use quite a harsh phrase at Rethink Press. We say, like, this is for serious entrepreneurs. Like, if you exactly say with a website or anything else, if you're serious, you want to build a serious asset that looks serious. You don't just kind of like throw a brochure out or, you know, here's my A4 printed sheet. You get a graphic designer. And the book is one of those most, like, to me, the most valuable asset you can have. And I'm going to tell on myself in a minute. We've alluded to the lorry full of books. So it's one of the most important assets you can have, because it's going to represent you into people's hands. It's going to go into the boardroom with them, into the bedroom, into the bathroom, on the beach. Like, that book is going to go places with them that you're not even invited to as a potential.
Oh, I've had that. I've had pictures of it in Mexico, in the Arctic Circle. The book has been places that I've never been.
Yeah. And that gets me to the point, like, you don't know what you don't know about publishing a book. So, and if I go back to my story, I got into publishing by accident because I wanted to do a book. I'm like, I'm not waiting to try and get a publisher. I don't think any publisher would have me. I'm going to self-published. This was before, like, Rethink, this was before print on demand. It was a while ago. And I'm like, I modeled the best books I could. I was a graphic designer of sorts, but not a book cover designer. And I didn't know anything really about books other than I loved books and I read a lot of books. And so my first book was a great example of a really badly put together self-published book. Like the front cover was bad. I got the title wrong. I called it The Gorillas Want Bananas. And then in the subtitle, The Lean Marketing Handbook for Small Expert Businesses. I know now I should have just called it Lean Marketing or The Lean Marketing Handbook. A guide for small expert businesses to get more by doing less. Everything was in it. And I'm like, I'm going to go with this story. This is the most important thing. So I got that wrong. I designed a cover that I'm embarrassed to share now. When people are like, oh, let me see the books you've done, I'm like, it's pretty bad. And then I made the biggest mistake. I decided to print 12,000 copies. I thought that sounds about right. I've got a list of about 20,000 emails. I'll easily sell those. And I printed 12,000. I thought, yeah, that'll be about right. And at the time I had offices in Birmingham. I was running a marketing consultancy at the time. I had big offices in Birmingham. And I decided, like, about 6 months earlier, I didn't mean to build a business like this. I was employing people. I was 23. And I'm like, what have I done? I've built the business that I left in order to start my own business, so I wouldn't have to be in a business like that. And so that was the reset. I'm like, I'm going to write this book, help small expert businesses, entrepreneurs to grow their business. It was really authority brand building back then as well. There were the same kind of principles. So I printed 12,000. I'm like, great, I'm going to use this book. I'm going to sell it. Everybody's going to buy it on my list. I'm going to make some money from it. And then there's going to be this book in everybody's hands and they're going to see me as an author. And when the books arrived, a bit like your story, the truck arrives, it's an amazing moment. I just want to talk to that. Like, I never get tired of seeing our authors unboxing videos, because I remember that first moment when you put something into the world. It's a very different asset to something that's just on social media. Even a brilliantly put together video, it's different. It's like, it's tangible and there's lots of it. And so anyway, this truck pulled up and a forklift came off the back of the truck and he pulled a pallet of books and plopped them outside our street, our offices in the street. And I said, oh my God, are all those books for me? He said, no, there's another 4 on the truck. And so he proceeded to fill the street. And you've met me in person, Jamie, a few times. I'm not very tall. So the pallets kind of towered over me. They were massive stacked pallets. It was a hot summer day. Our offices were on the 3rd floor and the lift was out of order. So I took all those books up and filled one of the back rooms in our offices. And I filled them floor to ceiling with boxes of books. And I'm like, now I've got to move them, I've got to sell them. And so for years after that, this was before print on demand, I used to take sacks of books every day to the post office that I'd sold either directly or via Amazon. In the old days, you had to do it via Marketplace. There was no direct route to Amazon. And I didn't sell them all. And what we found in the offices, they were all there. There was a big heating pipe, like, the really thick heating like you get in schools and old buildings. And some of the books we'd stacked against this heating pipe and the glue had come out. So there was all like glue and gunge on some of the covers. And this was a moment I realized, like, I've got to do something with these. So I said free books. Like, this was the first time I'd realized, like, give the thing away. Like, you don't have to sell every single one. And we were selling them. Again, price point, this was 25 quid for a book in 2003. So it was a hard sell. We tended to discount, but we'd started with a high starting price. But we found these glue damaged books. And I'm like, right, I'm going to put a campaign together. Who wants a copy of a best-selling book? I don't even think it was a bestseller, like in any kind of meaningful way, because I wouldn't have been able to keep track. But I probably said that in the marketing or something along those lines. There's a bit of glue damage, but otherwise it's a perfectly good book. And you'll get a copy of The Gorillas Want Bananas and learn how to grow your business by doing and spending less money. And loads of people took me up on it. And then as a result of that, because more people started to have the book and were talking about the book and were kind of like, and it was co-authored, a bit like your book, there was a co-author involved. We started to get kind of taken more seriously. And people were like, oh, look, it's the authors. Because we started to shift these books. And I remember my business partner got paid £1,000 for a gig in the Netherlands for a 30-minute speaking slot. And we were of the opinion, like, we'll speak anywhere if there's potentially a paying audience. Like, we'll speak at the opening of an envelope if there's potentially a client in that audience. We don't need to be paid. We'll get the money on the back end, old school marketing. And I'm like, wow, she got paid £1,000 for like half an hour's work. And so that's when it clicked, like, the power of books to grow your authority in business is amazing. And so as a result of that, I'm like, let's go all in. We're going to be publishers. And so I went to all my clients, all the experts I knew, and said, if you write a book, I'll publish it. We'll go 50-50. Wasn't a very clever concept. Like publishers don't do that. They tend to give you about 5%. But I'd like, let's go to partnership. Like, we're going to just get all our authors. And I was thinking, I'm going to learn from some of the brilliant sales traders I've got, some of the amazing coaches, the management consultants. I'm going to learn their secrets before it gets put into a proper book and everybody else gets to learn them. So there was a bit of a selfish angle. Anyway, I've gone off on a tangent, but that's where me as a publisher started. It was around 2006.
I love it. I had half a pallet that arrived, or probably a quarter of a pallet in comparison to the size of yours. And that felt a lot when that arrived for me. But I loved it. I loved that moment. There is nothing better. And I remember when the proof samples arrived and I was running an event, and Lou, we knew the delivery was coming, so she ran home so she didn't miss it because we had to approve them to keep up with the deadline. And then she came back. It was 2 minutes away from where we were at. So she came back and she walked in with this box, and then I said, I'll just put it down. And everyone was like, no, open the box. So I had to do a live unboxing of the first draft in front of everybody. And I'm down on my hands and knees and open it thinking, I hope this is actually the book. How disappointing if it's going to be some kind of Amazon delivery.
Yeah, something you'd forgotten you'd ordered just when the tools.
Just coincidence it arrived when I was, but that was a real moment, and my face was beaming, and someone caught it on video. It was like a pinch me moment.
We were in touch on WhatsApp because obviously I was anxious because we'd made this promise, several weeks earlier that the books are going to be there, and I'm like, the conference next week, and I kind of invited myself. I said, let me interview you on stage. So I'm like, I'm going to be there in person if there's no books. Like, I'm going to have to face Jamie face to face. Like, it hasn't worked. So I remember you sharing on WhatsApp, like the video. And it was great. It was great to be there, like almost as early as the other people that were in the room with you at that event to see that.
It's these moments.
Lovely.
So my point is, we can do all this stuff ourselves, but it's not our area of expertise. And there is a tendency to do the best of a bad job, I guess, rather than an amazing job. And I think at the point that you're competent enough to write about something that you're good at, you're probably at the point in business where you should be investing. And I don't know about you, Joe, but whenever I've invested in coaching, as an example, or marketing of some kind, I can't afford it. It never comes at the right time. And it's a stretch. But what I've found is the more that I invest, the more I expect to get back in return.
Yeah. It raises your standards, doesn't it? Rather than only your best is good enough, it's like, I've invested money and I better get a return. I better get service. I better get taken care of. Like, all of those things are going through the process when you're investing money. And you realize, like, as an entrepreneur, when you get to the point, it's not your money. You're kind of you're a steward for the money, for the business, for the mission, for the purpose that you've got. And so you want to spend that money wisely, and you want to spend your time wisely. So yeah, sorry I interrupted you, but I get really passionate about this because I'm a notorious I'll do it myselfer, and I've learned this lesson really, really the hard way as I've built a team.
So how many books have you published?
I've been saying over 1,000 for about 4 years. It's probably more like 1,200, maybe a bit more. We publish about 70 books a year at Rethink Press. So it's a lot of books. In the early stage of the first business, which was before Rethink Press, it had a different name. I published about 130 books. And I learned in the process. I was still doing a lot of the work, like some of the skill set I had, I was doing a lot of it myself. But I learned in the process the things I wasn't good at. And I think I should talk to this. Rethink Press now is a team of people that are passionate about publishing. They're specialists in tiny pieces of the process. I actually like that. They're my idea of hell. Like editing a book. I've done it, and I've probably not done the best job because it's not my superpower. It's taken me far longer than an expert. And I'm like, I could not do this for a living. Like, this would fill me with dread. So when you find people that are like, another book to edit, and like they go in and they go in deep and figuring all this stuff out, it's just great to know there are different people that make up the components of a great book. There's the creative side, there's the detail oriented side, there's the process side. You need a team to build a book. You need what is it? Is it you need a family to build a village? It's
So
not that, is it? I can't remember.
how many
A
how many
village,
people
yeah, a village to build a child. You need a team to build a book.
how many people are in the business?
So it's a small business in terms of fully employed people because of the nature of our business. It's like an agency business, so
Yeah.
we get kind of peaks and troughs in terms of demand for time. There are four full-time employed people in Rethink Press, and there's a team of about 60 specialists. And
How
there are
many?
kind of layers, so there's about 60 of freelancers that do certain parts of the process. So it's a
So
relatively big family.
let's just pause at that point, because I think that some people, if you've never been through this process, you go, right, so I'm doing all the work, I'm writing the book, and I'm just going to give it to you, Joe, to turn it into a book. 60
Yeah.
plus people involved in this process with different areas of speciality. And I
Yeah, and they're not
remember,
all on your book. We're doing multiple books at once, so
yeah,
there are different teams. But yeah, ultimately
but
there's
it's
about 60
more
people.
than one person's capability, isn't it? There is, and I remember there was someone that did all the book cover designs. Then somebody else is helping me with the launch process. Even I've seen other people that have self-published struggle to get it listed on Amazon. And they're like, oh, I
Yeah,
don't know. And like it took somebody 3 weeks to get that, and they missed the launch that they were planning. So this is a lot more complicated than someone might believe until you've been through the
yeah.
process.
And you just talked again. We were talking about like the invisible, the people that are slightly behind the scenes. There are invisible things that go on that have really made us a grown-up, proper publisher that can get, trade distribution. They're even more boring to me than editing those things, but they're vital. And I remember, so I'm going to shout out to Matthew Flynn, our head of publishing. He's the calm behind the kind of chaos that you see possibly at the front. Um,
Oh,
when he joined us,
excuse me. Go on.
yeah. So when Matthew joined us, I'm like, what I want to do is grow up our publishing, so get proper metadata to the book trade, get us our ability to get books into bookstores. We need somebody serious that knows the industry because I'm a creative and I'm an entrepreneur, but I didn't grow up in publishing. I don't know all the ins and outs of that time. Matthew's, I think, has been with us for 7 years, and so when we brought Matthew in, he's like, right, your metadata's all needs sorting. So there's loads of stuff he sorted out, loads of deals and things, parts of the distribution process that just weren't connected because I didn't even know about them.
Yeah.
And so really over those last 7 years, Matthew grew the business up massively, and he's very much behind the scenes. I don't know if you're into disc profiles or anything like that.
I'm
Matthew
aware of it.
on the disc profile, he's blue.
Yeah, he's
It's
the
like
opposite of me.
gorgeous, calm, detail, like process, get it right. Don't don't take unnecessary risks. I'm the opposite end of that, and so it's really great. And he often says, like, "I'm not entrepreneurial, I'm not really creative," and he'll say something. He's named my masterclass that I ran, Publish and Profit. That came from Matthew. So he is creative. I believe everybody's got aspects of all
Yeah,
this. Like the disc doesn't define you as like you're just that or that. Um, but I check everything by him. When I'm getting too enthusiastic and excited about this great idea I've got and it's all going to go perfectly, I'm like, Matthew, can I have a word? And then he'll find all the things that could go wrong. And I found like leaning into people with that skill set. And I think going back to the team, we've got people that fill all those quadrants of the disc profile. I won't go off on a kind of a description of the disc profile. I just say anybody listening to this, Google it because it's really useful. I use it in all kinds of communication, selling, choosing team, working with partners. But yeah, we've got a mix of skills, and there probably is a tendency when I think about editors, they tend to be on the blue green. When I think about people that are creative or in sales, they tend to be red yellow. So more extrovert, more either kind of thinkers or feeling it.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, I just thought I'd mention that. But yeah, there are people in our team that do things you don't even notice. And on the real travesty for me as somebody who wants to grow a commercial business and sell it's not even sexy to talk about. Nobody gets excited about this stuff, but it's a difference that makes a difference. It's the reason we're premium priced and not, on paper on a website, it might look the same. There's actually a lot going on behind the scenes that serves our authors.
And it's hard to quantify that and explain it sometimes. You feel like you're over explaining sometimes. But
Yeah.
for me, I'd been, I'd, definitely come across Daniel's books, but then I was at an event where he was speaking and he gave everybody, 500 people, a copy of Key Person of Influence. And that's where the moment kind of happened for me, where I thought, I need to be doing that, something similar.
Yeah.
Just explain the process that you talk to an author like me about it's not, nobody gets rich from publishing a book generally. They're one in a million, aren't they? From
well, I've got the data to back it up. I've published 1,200 authors, and my first business model was I'm going to make my riches from taking a stake in all these authors' books, and it's very clever and leveraged. And it did pay bills. Like, it paid bills for me. And I've always said the kind of focus on selling books works for publishers, but if you're an author with 1 or 2 books, it's a really hard thing to do. You need to sell a lot of a very low revenue product with a relatively small margin, especially when you're working with a traditional publisher. There's not much per book for you to do. So you end up putting a lot of leverage in to try and sell this thing. But it works for publishers. That's why we talk about bestsellers lists. That's why the whole retail the book retail business is about book sales, and that's why they shine the light on that. But for an entrepreneur, I see the book as a gift. Like, it's a door that you can open into your world. It's a door that opens, and you can start a relationship with someone, a really deep relationship through the words and the lessons and the value you're sharing. So that's number one. The philosophy overarching this is your book should be a gift. And what I found, so Daniel's a great example of this. He's made it. I interviewed him in lockdown, and I got him to kind of like quantify, how much the book was worth. And it's worth more than this, but in a transactional state, he said for every 1,000 books we give away, we generate 75 to 100K in sales for our Key Personal Influence program. And so my job is to just give more books away. He's like, the more books I give away, the more I make. And I quantify that as return per book. So if you divide the revenue by the number of books deployed, it works out about 88 quid per book. And, the cover price of his book, I think it's £12. So he's kind of getting a multiple on his book by just giving it away. But you do need a process in place for doing that. And I call that gaps. So it's give. What are you giving them? And I've never found anything. This is the mad thing for me. I've been a marketer my entire, I see myself as a marketer first and foremost. I've never found anything that converts on the front end of an offer after giving away value and sharing value on social media or wherever else than a free book, because people instantly get what one is. It's not like you've got a free mini course and you're like, well, is it free? How many hours am I going to invest? Everybody knows what a book is. And we've been trained through the ages to kind of see books as these important artifacts. Like, you don't throw a book in the bin. Even if it's a rubbish book, you'll tend to give it to someone else. Now, if a brochure that might have cost more to produce a new book, you're like, I'm not interested, it goes in the bin or in the recycling. But a book is kind of magic. So yeah, that's why I get so excited about books. I've lost my thread now. I got excited about books.
The process of giving them away.
Oh yeah, so the process, so you give, and once you've got that give, it's like, what are you going to ask for in return? And you've kind of earned the right by saying, I'm going to give you something of value, something that I put my energy, my time, my experience into. And so you've earned the right to ask for something. So you can ask, the very minimum, ask for name, email, and telephone number. And you probably come across Score App. I've used Score App and deployed it for a lot of my clients. The great thing about Score App, you can get them to opt in, so you can ask for name, email, and telephone to get the book. And then as soon as you've got their name, email, and telephone, you can ask them a few follow-up questions. And so in my process, it's like you've got a chance to survey them now. Like, you've already got the details. They're going to get the book, but they don't necessarily know that. So I always ask 3 follow-up questions, or suggest you do. One is about the person. If you're thinking about progressing this to a conversation about a relationship to work with your business, ask a question that might help to define if the person is the right person. So let's say you're working with corporates. You might ask the person question might be, what's your role? And if they say like team member, you might have like C-suite or founder, director. And you're like, if they tick that one, this is why I like Score Up. You can direct them a different route to give them either a different experience and invite them to the next step. So I won't get overcomplicated here. So ask for stuff. You can survey them a little bit. You can ask a few questions because you're giving them something of such value with a book. And then it's P. So what's your pitch process? So once you've asked for those questions, what are you going to offer them next? It could be, thanks so much for downloading the book. And this is where asking the person, I didn't answer the other P's actually. So the person, Then a question about their pains, like what in your current, in your business or in the context of what the business is that your book is related to, would you like to solve in the next 12 months?
Yeah.
Or what area of your business are you finding specifically challenging, or area of life or area of your health would you like to get right? So talk a little bit to the pain. You don't want to make them feel miserable, but like find there's actually something. And then the final P is the promise. Like, and I tend to frame this with the survey process in terms of benefits. So let's say in your case, it's like we're talking about a network of friends where you're going to be able to grow your business more quickly through connections. So your question might be something like, if you had all the connections you needed to make your business grow double in the next year, what would you most value in that? Like, what would be most exciting for you to be able to grow your business in the next 12 months to double its size? And then you're kind of getting them to feel like into the future, to get a vision of what it'd be like working with you. So that's what I tend to do. So it's give, ask for something. There are different ways of doing that. And then how are you going to propose? What's the process? Is it a one-to-one? Is it a product demo? Is it an invitation to come to an event for free or for
Yeah.
half price? Is it a limited time offer? And then what are you selling ultimately? Is it a next logical step in your process, or it is a very specific product? So I always work through that gaps process. If you can line all those things up and get the numbers working in terms of conversion, once you've cracked that, you can scale that and give away books. And then you've got this beautiful virtuous circle of being able to gift your book to the world, to anybody, even the people that don't become clients, because the machine is running and you can turn books into more business, more sales, far more revenue you get from selling books. So sorry, I went off on a bit of a deep dive there, but
Well, I think
excited.
it's important because I think one of the things that I think and I've observed with a lot of people, they just want a magic bullet. So,
Yeah.
do you know what? This is my last chance. I'm going to write a book and that's going to fix all my stuff. We both know Simona Vincenzi, who was on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Love him.
Oh my God, this is going to be the thing. I just need to do webinars. That's going to solve my thing. At the end of the day, and I had last week's episode, there's an underlying assumption that people are good. So Laurie was talking about LinkedIn and how to use that. There's an assumption that people are good that we work with. So you've got to be good at what you do. We're not generally fixing sales for people, so they need to have a sales process. We're a piece of the puzzle, but you've got to be competent at sales and you've got to have something that people want. Yeah. And I think there is a tendency that we live in this instant gratification world, thanks to Amazon and Netflix and the internet generally. The ChatGPT gives us the answers that we want to something straight away. All right, I just need this. And we had a brief conversation. There's a few people have said to me, can I just have a PDF of your book so that I can put it into ChatGPT and it can just tell me what I need to know? And I'm like, you're kind of missing the point here. And you said it's a bit like the Matrix where people just want to plug themselves in. I got to the point where I felt like at one point where every time I was in the car, I needed to have some audio on to be learning. When I was walking the dog, I had my headphones in, and there is something old school about a physical hard copy of a book. Look at the resurgence of vinyl, and people have realized, I mean, I think most people our age probably regret giving away all their vinyl records that would probably be worth a fortune now. I never gave my books away, interestingly. So whilst I might have got rid of all my tapes and CDs and all that kind of stuff, I've still got a huge collection of books that I didn't get rid of. There is something in that, isn't there?
Yeah, they travel time and space. Like I honestly, I could get woo-woo about it. Like if I think back, like as a kid, I grew up in Birmingham in a council estate, and I loved car boot sales because nobody valued books enough. Like you'd be able to buy like a library's worth of books. There'd be 20p a book. I'd come out, like go there with like £3, come back with like a library of books I wanted to read on all kinds of subjects. And I remember one of the books I picked up, I was really embarrassed about this book. I was so embarrassed, like I hid it as I kind of walked out the car boot sale. It was Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
I was probably about 30. And like, he wrote that years before. He wrote that in a different country. And then this kid from a council estate managed to get this book. And I read that book. It probably changed the trajectory of my life. I grew up, there were definitely career paths available to me, career criminal. I'm not knocking career criminals if they're doing good in the world. But there were career paths that weren't, probably wouldn't have fulfilled me or allowed me to fulfill as much of my potential as I could have as a kid with that start. And so I remember reading that book, but it was such an embarrassing title. And again, going back to the height, I'm not very tall. So I'm like, Awaken the Giant Within. Is this a book on trying to get taller? So I was really embarrassed. I took this book back, like, to my mum and dad's car and devoured it. But yeah, it traveled time. Like, that book, they didn't just throw it in the bin. It ended up in a car boot sale. Like, they probably didn't value how much that book was valued, or they got the value from it anyway and were just passing it along. But books stay. Like, there'll be remnants of books from hundreds
you can't
ago.
share it with somebody else, can you? If I download a digital copy of something, I can't hand it on to somebody else. And I have lent and gifted a lot of books. I mean, I've gifted so many copies of Go for No and The Go Giver over the years. And I gave somebody so I was at an event last week, and I'd invited someone along, and I gave Nicola a copy of my book because I thought it might be really useful for where she's at. She said to me yesterday she's just waiting for 4 copies to arrive that she'd ordered off Amazon that she's bought as presents for somebody else. There's not many things that have that impact, the knock-on effect for other people.
Yeah. I've never thought about that. They're all givable things, aren't they? They're gifts. They genuinely are.
We lend them because we want them back. There's value in it, isn't there? I'm going to lend you this, but make sure you give it me back. Yeah, I love it. So just talk me through some examples of people that you've worked with and how publishing a book has impacted their world.
Yeah. So I'm going to mention Simon Edwards because, again, it's a very quiet, like, if you were to Google Dr. Simon Edwards or look on LinkedIn, he's not very active, but he works. He's an agile, so he's a Scrum trainer. He trains people up to be agile. I can't think of the right words, but, agile teams so they can get stuff done in the lean way and an agile way. That's what he does. He works with big organizations. And his book, it took him about 3 years for it to connect from, I've invested in this book. Like, it was never going to be everybody wants to buy this book. It was a very specific niche book called Think, Do, Show about how to run an agile project. And I worked with him through, I've got a program that I run for some of my authors who want to kind of take things further called Make Your Book Pay. I worked with him. It was supposed to be a 90-day program. After about 30 days, he's like, I'm done. I don't need to do anymore. So he gave away, like, we had a conversation, and this again, a give. Like, I explained kind of a funnel version of the GAPS process, but I asked him a question. This has happened multiple times. Who have you worked with in the past that was just a brilliant client, paid well, was a good size project for you? And he said there was this one guy who was in a big multinational, and I said, have you given him a book yet? Just as a gift, like, because you worked with him, you could send him a book, just say, thanks so much, really enjoyed working with you. Thought I'd send you a copy of my book. And by the way, if you know anyone else, and this was a trick to it, thinking about giving rather than asking at this point, I said, send him a few books, maybe 3 or 4, and just say, if there's anyone else in your team or anybody in a similar position to you that would get value from this, we've obviously worked together and had a good process. Please feel free to send them on. So I've sent you a few copies. And so that happened. The person he got in touch with thanked him. He was like, oh, great. Thanks for sending the books. Like, great. I love the book. Sent it to someone else in another part of the organization, but with a bigger kind of department to work with. They got in touch with him and he got a £1 million contract over 3 years to deliver training. It was like, that was instant. He's like, I don't need to do anything now. I'll just get on with serving my client.
I had that exact conversation with somebody the other day. She's an executive coach, deals with the C-suite people that are successful. And I said, oh, you should definitely be writing a book. And I said, get that book into the hands of the right handful of people. It'll open all the doors that you want.
Yeah.
And
so, yeah,
I could really see that. But this is why I love stories, because when somebody else has done what we want to do and we can start to hear how it could work for us, that's where, okay, so it has worked for them. You're not just making this up.
Yeah, it works. And it works like my co-founder in Rethink Press calls the unexpected events of that, as the book's kind of traveling around and getting between people's hands, as book magic. That's why when we founded the app, we called it Book Magic AI. Those little magic moments where you just hand over a book to someone, you find out. This happened with Mark Escott. So he wrote a book called One More Life Chance. In the Southwest, he runs a charity for kids that have fallen out of the education system. Brilliant guy. He doesn't mind me sharing this. He doesn't mind us sharing this. He was dyslexic, so in the school system for him, it was a terrible experience. People just thought he was, a bad kid, didn't kind of do well at school, and so he went off the rails. And so he built a charity for kids that kind of fall out of mainstream education, built a school for them. And when he published his book, he handed it to somebody. One of the things I say is, like, if you can have a few copies of your book with you wherever you go, because you don't know who you might meet, and you can give them a gift and connect with them in a meaningful way. And so he kind of had that in mind. So he had a few books in his bag, and he was sat next to somebody on a train, and they got talking and chatting. And he said, "Oh," before he left the train, he's like, "Oh, let me give you a copy of my book," because he was talking about what he'd done. And so he left with a copy of his book. He was his local MP, and that one connection for his business, for what he was trying to achieve in that area, was such a vital, useful connection for him that it enabled him to grow that business. He sold it, I don't know how much for, and it's allowed him to carry on his philanthropy and kind of make an
Wow.
even bigger impact beyond that one school. So there are stories like that as well. It's not always in the kind of clinical, like, build a funnel and do all that stuff, which I'd advise everybody to do with their book. But as you kind of said, it's not like write a book, publish it, and then wait for the money to roll in. It's write a book, publish it, and then deploy it, like get that gift into people's hands.
I think as well, for the people who are speakers that want more speaking opportunities, having a book gives you credibility. And before I'd even published the book, we were just promoting it before somebody booked me to speak at an event that they were running at their mastermind event. And that was before it had even come out. Jamie, I've seen that you're publishing your book. Would you come and speak at our event? And it just opens doors.
Yeah. I love that you use that phrase, like, open doors is the aim of the game. You end up being able to open doors that were kind of previously closed. It's almost like the book is a key that you needed. You couldn't open that door till you got it. Yeah, I love that.
Definitely. So there are so many benefits, and I've seen like a halo effect, I guess. And it's taken me, I'll tell you what, it's taken me a while to step into being an author. I went through the process, but I didn't necessarily see myself. So we're in April now. I published last September. So I'm still in my first 12 months. And fortunately, thanks to you and everyone around me, we got to bestseller on the day that it launched.
Yeah.
Which was another pinch me moment. I remember we'd had our conference during the day, and during the day you'll give me updates on it. It was like a number 9 and number 6, and then it got to number 3, and then I was in my favorite Indian restaurant doing the wrap up afterwards, and I was sat with Matt Richardson and a couple of others, and you WhatsApped me, and it went, and Chris was there, and it said, "You got to number 1," and I think it was 2 out of the 3 categories that we were in, and I was just like, right, my work here is done. But it's so
another moment, isn't it? That there were so many milestones in an author.
But it's not. That's the start. It's just the first hurdle that you get through the day that you launch. And I don't know if you see this, Joe. Right, I've done all this work. I just need to get it launched, and then that's it. And then they stop. What's the difference between the people that treat it as the first step rather than the last step?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think it's knowing what you went in for in the first place. I think some people just wanted to tick it off their list, as I'm an author now and I can add it to my profile. And they sometimes miss the gift they've got that they can give. They miss the value of it. So I think in some cases that, I think sometimes, and I see this, I'll say less so with our authors, but it still happens with some of our authors as well. They write the wrong book because their business is at a different stage, and then they realize this book isn't quite a fit for where they want to be, how they want to be perceived. And we work really hard. If we can get an author at the early stage, why we go all the way from planning through to leveraging the book. If we can catch an author at the early stage, like having that critical planning, like who's the person you're writing for? What are the pains you're really solving? What are you best at in the world at delivering? What's the transformation you want for them? And what ultimately do you want it to do for you? Like having those questions right up front before you write a word can avoid that. So I think in some cases it's kind of like, not the book I wanted to write. I'll wait till I've got the next one. In other cases, we get this all the time. I have this issue. I'm having this issue right now. Having Rethink Press was acquired at the end of December by Forbes Books, Advantage, the authority company, and so we're in the same stable as Forbes Books, Entrepreneur Books. Very excited and feel like, somebody saw some value in me because I thought I was unemployable after 30 years doing it myself. So I'm now part of a bigger organization. I'm going through that identity shift from founder with complete autonomy to, still a highly regarded senior leadership team member, but there's people I'm now accountable to, and I've got to sometimes check. So I'm going through that, but I think the author shift is massive because you have to literally cross a threshold from just another expert with a book, just an entrepreneur with a book that I'm using. And while I love the word, I hate the word as well. When people say, "Oh, book is the best business card," and it's more than a business card. Like it
Well,
contains
you compare that with me that I thought was really interesting. You can meet somebody and buy them a coffee, and let's say it's £10 for 2 coffees. And it's not far off that now, is it? That's without cake. And for the same price, or less, you could post someone a copy of your book as an author. And what's the difference, Joe? Why would I want to send someone my book rather than me?
Well, the difference is you can do it at scale. So you can have multiple coffees all at the same time. You can, if you've got the machine running, you can have books going out or having coffees for you at the same time. It's still intimate if they engage you book. If you've written a book that engages them, that talks to them, that provides a solution, and they do a bit of the work, it's intimate. They're reading your words. It's even better than you telling them this. They're reading your best thinking in their own voice, in their own head. And I've trained in all kinds of interesting things. I'm one of those people that are curious. Neuro-linguistic programming being one of them, to be a better copywriter. That was my intention. It's really hypnotic if you think about it. If I'm reading your words, your commands, your assertions, your thinking in my own head, in my own voice, however we kind of process that, that's like hypnotizing yourself with the other person's doctrine. To go off on a bit of a tangent. So it's intimate, like it's really intimate. And they feel like there's a gift. So you do feel like when you meet authors for the first time. I was lucky enough, I was in Dublin last week. I met Benjamin Hardy. I don't know if you've come across him. So he wrote a book, Who Not How, Scaling.
Yeah.
I've got his book here. Scaling is the latest one.
10x is better than 2x.
Yeah. So him, I got to meet him in person. I felt like I knew him because I've got his books all over the place. And I'm like, that's him. And he said some maybe if in a normal networking environment, somebody would say something so profound, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Because it was him, I was hanging on every word. And somebody was asking, her plan was to start a new venture. She's like, I want to aim for 3 million in the first 12 months. She was a successful entrepreneur already, so it wasn't like an unbelievable goal. And one of the principles in his book is you raise the ceiling and you raise the floor. Like you've got to say no to more
the
stuff.
science of scaling, isn't it?
Yeah. And so he said, well, you should really be aiming for 30 million in the first year if you want to kind of, and I listened to him like somebody else said that. I was like, oh, yeah, big Ed. Because it was him and he's written all the books. I'm like, oh, that landed with me. So like even that side effect of being in the presence of an author and you realize it's an author, but I felt like I already knew him. I was calling him Ben, like I was his best mate. I was, let's get a selfie. And I still haven't got the picture. Somebody else took it. But you feel like you know the author. So it's really intimate, going back to the coffee. And then the final thing is, after a coffee, you both go your separate ways. And then you have to do follow-up back and forth. After a book's in their hands, it's still sitting on their desk. It's still with them. It's still something they can access. If you call them afterwards and the book happens to be on the side, like I say, like I'm one of these people, so I'm gonna now share. So this is the science of scaling. I hate jackets on hardback books. They do my head in. So the book is actually in the toilet. But don't. I just, as I say, you take the book to the bathroom with you. So I took that bit off so I could read it. So it's that intimacy. It's like it lands long after a coffee would have landed. It feels more significant as a gift than buying someone a coffee. So it's going back to one of your core philosophies. It's friendship fuels business. Did I get that right?
Yes.
Yeah. To me, that's what it is. It's ability to handshake, to give somebody value and a gift at scale.
I love it. So let's just move on now. You just skirted right over it. Rethink was acquired by the Advantage Group.
Yeah.
The Forbes books, Forbes magazine. Just tell us a little bit about that. So people might have heard of Forbes, but they might not know much about it. So just introduce that concept.
Yeah, well, Forbes magazine, I think the current kind of head is Steve Forbes, is a huge like magazine, and kind of an institution and a brand for thought leaders right at the top of the game, like CEOs, senior leaders, people that have already made it. And it's kind of that brand. It's like people that get on the cover of Forbes magazine. It's in a song, isn't it? I can't remember the song. There's a song with like, I want to be on the cover of Forbes magazine. It's a big deal in the business making money, commercial world as a brand. And Forbes Books is founded by an amazing CEO. Like, I'm so in awe of him. Not the fact he's 6'7". So like when we got our photos, when I went to Charleston to meet him, like these are going to be interesting corporate photos. How you going to like get us all in the frame? But he's an amazing visionary CEO, and on the board he's got people like Vern Harnish, who has published with Forbes Books. So Vern Harnish is the Rockefeller Habits and then Scaling Up, and I think it's Scaling Up. I don't want to get it wrong because if I've got the same name as Ben, oh, I've got these names on out my head because I'm one of those. Yeah, Benjamin Hardy's book. It's got a very similar business name, but they're very different people. So he's got amazing people on the board. He practices what he preaches. Like I've never worked in an organization where KPIs and OKRs are actually operational. Everybody gets it. Everybody knows what the mission is. So that's like one thing is amazing. So he started the business. And he just made some really bold moves. He's like, I'm going to talk to Steve Forbes about Forbes Books. Like, we've got Forbes
who are
magazine.
You talking about now?
So this is Adam Whitty. So Adam Whitty, the CEO of Advantage, but also Forbes Books. He's like, I'm just going to reach out to them. I think it was about 15 years ago that he got the deal then to license Forbes Books and to be the official publisher for Forbes of books. And so like his business trajectory since then has been phenomenal. He's since in the group as well. We've got Entrepreneur Books, which Entrepreneur Magazine. If we see Forbes as kind of the pinnacle, these are the business thought leaders. Kind of like they've already done it. Now this is about their impact and their significance and legacy and leaving that legacy for the audience. And the books talk to that. I mean, they're the most beautiful hardback books where I'd pull the cover off and like, completely, I can't read it without on.
First thing I do with that, I'd take the jacket off them.
Yeah, it just all falls over the place, doesn't it? Especially if you're reading it on the loo. You don't want to drop the book in your lap. So there's that. And then you've got Entrepreneur Books, this is for really like sharp, smart, like how-to entrepreneurs that have got significant value to share, but they're still proactively in the game. You're absolutely in the game, delivering, running businesses, scaling businesses. And then you've got Advantage, which Advantage Books is kind of the big sister, big brother of Rethink Press now.
Yeah.
Advantage Books just adds so much publicity engine. They call it authority brand building, but there's at the core of any of these imprints, there's like a whole team of publicists, podcast specialists, social media. Like they put a whole kind of publicity campaign behind you in those imprints. And then Rethink Press has joined that. We're really there as the entry level to their kind of family of publishing businesses. As you know, you've published with us. We're for smart entrepreneurs that are building something significant. They're building business. They're building authority. And they might not necessarily have the means to invest in some of the additional publicity, but they know a book is going to change the game. It's going to be that tool that opens the doors. And I think they found us because our standards are aligned, like our values are very aligned. But actually, all of these services are white glove. I would say, I don't know. I mean, you've experienced us. I'm all over my clients. If I can be, I'll be there for them. There's a few more moving parts. So you get a production editor that sees you through the whole process. Like you've got one single point, but occasionally you might talk to different members of the team. The way Advantage Plus do it, they throw a whole team at you and they're following you everywhere. It's like you've got like in Billions, you got your kind of entourage following you around. Like where are we at with the book? So that's the slight difference. It's a slightly different approach, but the same really high standards. We want to produce amazing books that amplify authority for our authors. So that's the story there. You probably want to dig into some other questions there, but I thought I'd use this as an opportunity to plug the whole of Advantage.
It's interesting. I think there's a whole separate podcast episode just on being acquired and what it's like to go through that process, because I think I deal with most people at the start of the entrepreneurial journey when they're launching and building their business, not necessarily at the other end of the outcome where you're thinking about exiting and going back to being an employee. I mean, that's got to be, you mentioned it, you're solely responsible for all your decisions, and now you're a cog in a bigger wheel.
Yeah, and somebody said this to me, and I'd never really thought about it. Like, as an entrepreneur, we'll all experience this. It's our job to keep the lights on for everyone, like everyone in the team. Everybody you said, like, join me on this journey, this adventure. Like, it becomes your responsibility. You feel that responsibility deep. Well, I do. I feel it deeply. Like the people that I bring in, like their livelihoods depending on me now, kind of figuring this stuff out. And somebody said, "Oh, you no longer need to keep the lights on." And I had a moment of like, "Oh, that sounds great." And then I had a massive moment of panic, which is like, maybe that was the only motivator that kept me like showing up, like, all the, and it hasn't been like, I'm fully like engaged. And interestingly, I've had other people ask, like, also, you just work, how long's your earn out? Blah, blah, I suppose you're going to retire now. I'm like, I get to work and say I'm part of Forbes books. I'm all in, like, this might be my next 20 years. I'll see where it takes me. I'm not, I'm not afraid of doing that, but I am finding the transition in my behavior, in my identity,
What we do is now
I'm like, I go to school, isn't it? Like, it's like somebody that's never seen a school before. Because I worked in a real job for a year, like as a real employee in an ad agency for a year. I've not seen the inside of corporate. I've not seen the inside of organizations and how they operate. So I am like the greenest person. I think people think, I feel like, you know, the film Elf, where everything's like wild, wide-eyed wonder. Like, somebody does that for me. It's like, oh yeah, don't design that, Joe. Like, there's a team there. You have to put it through a process here, and it will pop out at the end. You'll get the asset created for you. And I'm not used to that, so I'm not necessarily utilizing all the brilliant people around me enough yet, because I don't know them all. It's a big organization, but yeah. So that's the journey so far. So yeah, I'm probably like the guy that keeps asking really annoying questions as well, because I'm a marketer. I know I've already probably made people go, "Oh, don't bring that up again, Joe." Like, that's this is one of the things that are there, but you've mentioned it. So I'm querying a lot. I'm questioning a lot.
Yeah, I can
Being
imagine.
gentle, because I'm conscious. Like, I've been kind of brought in as senior leadership tier. There are real experts in that organization that know their stuff, and I'm new. Like, I don't know a thing. So I'm really careful when I ask a stupid question. I think I've just started something I shouldn't have started there, possibly, to check in with them. To say, look, you can tell me, get back in your box, Joe. This isn't any of my business. I'm fine with that. So do that. And occasionally one or two things I've done is sign off on stuff that wasn't for me to sign off. I was just CC'd. It's like, "Oh, we've designed the logo. What do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, great. Let's get it out there." I'm like, "Sorry, everyone. That wasn't my call."
But I think this is interesting, though. So by dealing with you are an entrepreneur. So
Yeah.
And there's a difference for someone that's got that knowledge and experience, that's been through the whole process from starting something to finishing and then moving on to the next part of the journey. You've got a wealth of experience that you can offer to people, and publishing over 1,200 books. You've been there, seen it, done it, seen the mistakes. And, I say this all the time, people working with you get to learn vicariously. They don't need to make the mistakes that other people have done, because you'll guide them to avoid that. And that whole thing.
Yeah, I've made plenty of those. Yeah. And I think we all do. And I'd love to say, like, I've just learned from everybody and not made the same mistake. I'm like, nah, I think they're wrong. I'm gonna test this. Oh yeah, no, that was a mistake. I could have learned from someone who'd already made that mistake, but I thought I knew better. Well, they just didn't do it as well as me. Yeah. So it's interesting, yeah. But that's been the experience so far. I love the organization, and just finding it like I'm all of a sudden like this, alien in a new culture. It's very aligned, but I don't know how it all works. So I am probably like bumbling along, kind of, in a fancy restaurant. I'm probably like trying to, I don't know. I'm eating steak with a spoon. Just going like, how do I get this thing? Because I don't know what I'm doing.
But it's that next thing. And that's what keeps things interesting when we do new things all the time, doesn't it? So Joe, we've been talking about in a few weeks' time, we're going to do a webinar together, because there's a lot of people ask me about the whole process of publishing a book. So what are you going to cover on that webinar? Why would somebody want to turn up for it?
So it will be a turn on my publish and profit process. So I'm going to go through really 3 big things. So how to plan the right book. I talked about that earlier, like knowing what questions to answer before you even start thinking what's going to go into the book. So getting the planning right, positioning that book. So it's going to be the book that lands with your ideal clients. It's going to land with partners. That's going to represent you the best possible way for your business. So we'll look at positioning specifically in the how to plan. Then we'll look at the writing process a little bit, like how do you get the book done? And you've got your own experience. There are lots of ways of getting the book done, but we've got a way of doing that. So I'm going to talk to that. Then I'm going to share like the right publishing approach. As we talked about earlier, traditional publishing feels like you've made it, somebody chose you, but their business model, and it's not their fault, it's an investment model. So they're like, let's get a bunch of books and we'll focus our attention on the ones that make us money from book sales. And what they're really doing is leveraging the individual author's time and platform to sell books. What they want to see is that you can sell books. That's at odds with being able to give a book away. Like they don't want you to give a book away unless you bought it from them at the same rate they could have sold it. So they want you to sell the book in the trade. And I've seen authors, friends of mine that have like landed big deals. I won't name the publisher. And I'm like, you're working for the pub. Like I can see them working for the publisher. They're like, there's an opportunity for them to connect with somebody so good. And it's like, yeah, the book's 15 quid. I'm like, give them the book. Like I'm watching it in like real time and give them the book.
I've seen
So
that.
we'll talk about that. So we'll talk about finding the right publisher. I believe there's only one right publishing approach for entrepreneurs, and it's hybrid, which happens to be the business I'm in. So there's a little bit of bias there. But that's why I started Rethink Press, was to make those author copies as low as possible, so you can afford to give them away and get that return more quickly. That's at odds with a traditional publisher. So we'll look at that. And you already mentioned about self-publishing, like all the risks, what you don't know what you don't know, the things that can go wrong, the fact that I use this term, I don't like the term very much, but it's an important one: publish and be damned.
Yeah.
Once you publish it, you can't take it back. You can still go and find my crappy cover for my first book on Amazon. I can't get it back. Like I can't just remove it. It exists. There'll be somebody with a copy somewhere. Actually, last month, a couple of months ago, sorry, somebody said, I thought I recognized you. I was running a webinar. It's like, I got a copy of your book that you signed in like 1986 or whatever it was, like 2004, when you were at an event and you signed a copy of the book for me. So you can't get rid of it once it's out. So we'll talk about that. And then we'll talk about leveraging the book. So how to make the book profitable. So I'll talk about the gaps process. I'll share how you can calculate the return per book. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And then there'll be Q&A if we've got time for Q&A. I love Q&A. It fills in the gaps where I probably glossed over stuff or went off on a tangent and didn't cover something. So we'll have Q&A as well for any questions. Ask me anything. Perfect. And I'll respond. It might not be an answer, as we see. I don't want to get political, but as you see in PMQ, you don't necessarily always answer a question with an answer.
So I'll drop a link to that for people that want to register. The link will go in the show notes for this. Joe, I just want to say I've loved this conversation, so thank you. And I'm delighted that we're going to have you as one of our headline speakers at our event in September. So for anybody who's enjoyed this podcast, if you haven't done, and I can't believe you haven't done, but if you haven't done yet, buy your ticket for Circle Networks Live this September in Birmingham. It promises to offer a lot for people.
Amazing. I'm thrilled. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, Joe. All right, I'll see you soon.
Cheers.